The funniest person in any group of friends is almost never the happiest. I always loved Barney Stinson. Looking at him, I used to think, it doesn't get more legendary than this guy. Yeah, he lies to women constantly. He has a playbook full of manipulative schemes. He shows up to every occasion in a three-piece suit like he's the most important man in any room he walks into. But you know what really gets me about him lately? It's not the failed marriage. It's not the daughter he meets in a parking lot. It's not even the legendary plays. What hit me was one thought that landed on me recently and just would not let me go. Barney Stinson was the most emotionally abandoned person in that entire friend group. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff. I'm not talking about his dad leaving, which everyone brings up. I'm talking about something much darker. He was abandoned inside his own friend group, the one he built, the one he maintained, the one he poured money and energy and years of his life into. Pained, almost disbelieving, every single day they told him to his face that he was a terrible person. And he laughed. Every time he laughed. Because laughing was the only move he had left. Think about it. Most casual fans watch How I Met Your Mother and see Barney as the comic relief, the guy who says,
"Be legend!" Wait for it. Dairy!
The guy with the playbook. But when he finally grows up and proposes to Robin, we cheer. We think, great, character development, he did it. But they're watching the surface. The real truth is that Barney Stinson built a fortress out of confidence and swagger and suits, not because he was arrogant. Because the first time he let his walls down, at 19 years old, the world walked straight through him and left him lying on the floor in a turtleneck. Hey, pull up a seat. Today, I want to walk you through why this man, the funniest, loudest, most charismatic person in every room, was secretly the loneliest one in it. And why none of us caught it for 9 straight seasons. Let me start at the beginning, because you cannot understand the suit without understanding what came before it. Barney Stinson at 19 years old was not Barney Stinson. He had long hair, he wore turtlenecks, he played acoustic guitar outside his girlfriend Shannon's apartment. Because he was the kind of guy who believed love was enough. He was sweet, idealistic, completely open. He had no walls. And then, Shannon left him. Not just left him, she left him for a man in a suit, a corporate guy who had money and power and zero of Barney's warmth. She looked at this kind, gentle, open-hearted boy and decided that what she actually wanted was the exact opposite. And something cracked in Barney that day. Because here's the thing about that moment that the show only shows you in fragments. He didn't just lose a girlfriend. He decided, in that moment, that who he actually was, the real, soft, vulnerable Barney, was not good enough. That the world did not reward being open. That the world rewarded the suit. So he put one on. Literally. He walked into a store, bought a suit, and decided he was never gonna be that turtleneck kid again. He built a brand new person from scratch. But here's what I want you to really sit with. That takes incredible energy to maintain. Every single day, Barney Stinson woke up and performed. He performed confidence. He performed not caring. He performed the legend. Because the second he stopped performing, the 19-year-old kid with the acoustic guitar was still right there underneath it all. And that kid was terrified. The playbook wasn't a game. It was a system he built to make sure he was always the one doing the leaving. Because if he left first, nobody could leave him. He turned his deepest wound into a lifestyle. And we laughed at it for 9 years. Now let me talk about his friends, because this is the part that genuinely makes me angry. Try to think of one moment, just one, where Ted or Marshall or Lily sat Barney down and said, "Hey, are you actually okay? Like, underneath all of this, who are you?" Still thinking? Because I've rewatched this show more times than I'd like to admit, and I cannot find that scene. It does not exist. What I can find easily across nearly every season are scenes where his friends tell him to his face that he's a bad person. Barney, you're terrible. Barney, you're disgusting. Barney, I can't believe you. And Barney laughs it off because that's the bit, right? That's the character. But stop and think about what that actually is. These are his best friends, the people he chose. Who flies to San Francisco to drag Marshall and Lily back together when they break up? Barney. Who spends a small fortune helping Ted with his apartment, his jobs, his dates, his life? Barney. Barney is the power outlet of that group. Everyone plugs into him, his energy, his money, his schemes, his loyalty. And nobody charges him back. Instead, what they give him in return is the constant reminder that he's the worst one in the room. My girlfriend once said something to me that I think about all the time now. She said, "The funniest person in any group of friends is almost never the happiest. They're the one who learned earliest that making people laugh is the safest way to be loved without being known. You get the warmth of the room without the risk of the room ever seeing who you really are." Barney Stinson is the funniest person in that group, every time, without fail. And nobody ever asked him why. Here is where it all comes from. Here is the root. Barney's dad left. That's not a secret. The show tells you that. But what the show also does, quietly, without making a huge deal of it, is show you what that absence actually did to a child. His mother told him his father was a famous astronaut, a legendary, heroic, absent man who was just too important and too busy to be there. And young Barney believed it. He held on to that story like a life jacket. My dad is extraordinary. That's why he's not here. It's not because I wasn't enough. And then Jerome shows up. And Jerome is not an astronaut. Jerome is a perfectly ordinary suburban dad with a minivan and a lawn to mow. And the look on Barney's face in that moment is one of the most devastating things this show ever put on screen, because you can see him doing the math in real time. If my dad isn't an astronaut, then there's no grand reason he was gone. He just chose not to be there. For a child, that is an almost unsurvivable thought. It is much easier to believe your father is a hero on a mission than to believe your father just didn't want you enough to stay. And then there's Robin. Robin Scherbatsky is the only person in this entire show that Barney Stinson ever genuinely loved. And I don't mean the performative love, the grand gestures, the elaborate proposal. I mean the quiet, terrified, real love that he had no playbook for. Watch him around Robin carefully, specifically in the early seasons before he admits it to himself. He's different. The performance slightly drops. There are moments where Barney is just a person, not a character. A person sitting next to someone he cares about, trying to figure out how to exist in that feeling without running from it. He creates systems to keep her at arm's length, because if she matters, he can lose her. And losing is the one thing the playbook has no chapter for. And the tragedy of their eventual marriage, the marriage the show builds toward for 3 seasons, is that they get together for the right reasons and fall apart for the wrong ones. Sad, but bitter. Robin's career pulls her away, slowly, from the inside of their marriage. And Barney, who has spent his entire life being left, watches it happen and accepts it, because deep down, some part of him always believed that people leave. Then, the divorce is handled in 60 seconds in the finale. 3 years of a relationship, 60 seconds. And then Barney is right back to the playbook, right back to the performance, like none of it ever happened. Like he wasn't just quietly, completely destroyed. And then the finale gives us the only thing that ever actually got through to him. Ellie. Barney Stinson, after the divorce and the return to the playbook and the endless performances, has a daughter. By accident. a woman he never named, a night he probably barely remembered. And the show gives us this one moment. Barney holding his daughter for the first time. And everything, the grin, the bit, the swagger, the suit, all of it just falls away. He is not performing. He is just a man looking at a tiny person who needs him, who has no idea who he is yet, who cannot judge him or leave him. And he says,
You are the love of my life.
that line hits so differently when you understand what came before it. His whole life, Barney Stinson chased love in forms that couldn't actually reach him. He built walls specifically designed to keep love at arm's length while making it look like abundance. And in the end, it took a person who had no choice but to need him, who couldn't leave, who didn't know enough to judge him, to finally show him that the real Barney, the turtleneck kid underneath all that armor, was always enough. If, like me, you've spent years laughing at Barney's bits without ever seeing the person underneath them, welcome. Subscribe to our channel. The couch has been waiting. Take a seat.